I can have everybody's attention for a second. Thank you. I'm just going to make a real quick announcement at the beginning. We are going to do a swearing in of some officers at the fire department. Their families are here, and we're going to give them, after that's done, time to leave. And at that time, we'll probably open up another 20 seats in here. So if you're out there in the lobby, or if you're sitting somewhere out there, or standing, I'm sorry, just hang in there for a little bit, and we'll open up some seats here in just a little bit. All righty. Thank you for coming to tonight's meeting, July 8th, 2024. Would you all please rise for the pledge and prayer by Councilmember Brill.
Father God, we thank you for this day that you've blessed us with. And we thank you for the opportunity that we have to serve our community and work together to try to make the best decisions that we can for our citizenship and for our citizenry and for this whole community. We ask for your guidance to guide and direct us. I just want to thank you, Lord, for the department heads that we have here and the great work that they do, and it makes our job as council so much easier. And we are blessed with a wonderful fire and police department, and we are so grateful for what they do for us to protect us here. Watch over us this night, and all these things we pray in Jesus' name, I pray. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Brill. Madam Clerk, we have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Brill. Here. Councilmember Bessel. Here. Councilmember Paulus.
Here.
Councilmember Pennington. Councilmember Kraft.
Here.
Councilmember Myers.
Here.
Councilmember Davidson.
I'd like to make a motion to, what's the word I'm going to say? Excuse, thank you. To excuse Councilman Davidson and Councilman Pennington.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right. Any agenda modifications? Having heard none for this evening from anybody, we'll let them stand as going to be written. Is there an executive session tonight?
No request, Mr. Mayor.
No executive session. All righty. We're going to move to an exciting part of the evening here. So we're going to have some fire department personnel and some promotions. Gentlemen, if you can come on up. If your families just want to come up, wives and we'll do some cool pictures, but until then, the chief's going to say something.
First off, I didn't realize Mark and Brendan had such big families, and you're all here for the swearing in. But that's awesome. We really appreciate the support. So Lieutenant Mark Bittner, has 12 years in the fire service, 9 with the city of Fairfield. He will serve as a lieutenant on Quint 31 on Unit 1, and his badge will be placed by his wife, Megan. Lieutenant Brendan McCarty has 17 years in the fire service. Brendan also served 6 years in the U.S. Army and has been deployed to Operation Noble Eagle in 2001 and Operation Enduring Freedom in 2003. Lieutenant McCarty will serve as Ladder 32's lieutenant on Unit 2. Pinning his badge will be his wife, Katie.
But the rest of the family, if you guys want to come up, if you want to shoot pictures, you can do whatever you want. I'm going to read a little oath, and then we're going to have time for a quick picture or two, and we'll have some fun, okay? So get up there. Got to support your... There you go. Hang on, I got a couple. Look at these kids. Look at that. Wow. Are you cute as ever? Hey, look at him. I love this. All right, this is great. Yeah, get all the pictures you can. We'll get the real one here. I'm going to make this real easy. You guys won't need that. No. All right, here you go. This is the swearing in for the fire lieutenant for the city of Fairfield. I'm going to say, I raise your right hand and state your name. You're going to need to flip that over. There you go. There you go. Raise your right hand. All right. I and state your name. As fire lieutenant for the city of Fairfield, swear to continually demonstrate professionalism, competence, respect, and loyalty in the performance of my duties, to serve my commanding officers with respect and dignity, and to serve the citizens of Fairfield with compassion, courage, and integrity, and to uphold the laws and constitutions of the United States of America, state of Ohio, and the city of Fairfield, Ohio. So help me God. Very good. That was good. See, I told it to be painless. All right. Now you can go ahead and pin the badge right on there. Hit it really hard when you get it in there. Cool. Chiefs, you want to get in there on that end, and I'll get on this end, and we'll get a group picture.
That's okay. All good.
Yep, go right ahead. Go right ahead. There you go. Cool. Isn't that cool? Congratulations. Whoop, good, do it. Good. We got time. It's like a brother. Much younger. All right. Well, thank you guys for coming and congratulations again. So now's the time. I'm going to pause. I'm going to walk around and you guys can. For those of you that are out in the lobby now, we have about 20 seats in here that are open. You're welcome to come on in and join us.
Well, I gotta put up my magazine.
I'll give you another minute for those coming in to find a seat. There's seats over here, and there's seats over there, and the seats up here in the front, too.
I don't have time to put it up, I make her go in her cage. But now I just say Molly and I point to it, she goes in. And now she's got to where she wants to get up in my lap and she lays here like a baby. And then I scratch her chest.
That's so sweet. I've just about had it with mine. She's so high maintenance now. She's blind.
Oh, gosh.
She's got that Addison's disease. She's afraid of the fireworks. It's not like she just shakes, she barks. And I cannot get her to stop.
All right. Next on the agenda, it says citizen comments. But I understand a lot of people are here for the public hearing, so we're going to leave the citizen comment section after that. So unless you're here for something other than the Wawa public hearing, you're welcome to grab the mic and state your name and address and tell us what you would like to say. Anybody here like that? All right. All right. Council reports. I'm going to start down here with Councilmember Brill.
Nothing to report this evening.
Mr. Myers?
Mr. Mayor, on public utilities, I'd like to announce the annual race for global water. It's a 5K run walk. It'll take place Saturday, August 3rd, starting at 9 a.m. at the Fairfield Waterworks Park. This is the 14th year that Fairfield has hosted the great event. It raises money for Water for People organization. It's a non-for-profit, and it really exists for helping underdeveloped countries with water services, water resources, and so forth. Music, food, lots of prizes and so forth. And if you go to the gwcconsortium.org website, you can register there. You know, one thing I just want to comment on this is one of the items in Fairfield that we are unbelievably blessed to have, and that is clean water, ample water supply, because we sit over one of the largest aquifers really in the world. And I can go on for a long time as Adam, why it's here and so forth. But this is a great run, and hopefully folks out there will get some exercise doing it. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Kraft?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Public Works Department is coordinating a residential tree program that will provide residents with a voucher for 50% off of a tree up to a $200 value purchased through the Lakeview Garden Center on Pleasant Avenue or the Meyer Garden Center on Route 4. Details are in the letter and available on the city's website under the Public Works section. There's an application that you can download. Looks just like this. It's actually, appreciate you delaying the Wawa discussions. Everybody's forced to listen to my announcement about the tree. The residential tree application looks like this. You can fill that out. It's available on the city's website again under Public Works. And there's also a tree program with a QR code down at the bottom for you guys to scan. But again, Public Works in the city is basically covering 50% of the cost of that tree, the tree value up to $200. So thank you, Mr. Mann, for doing that.
That's a big deal, folks. You need to load, if you're interested in any trees, up to $400 or a $200 reimbursement. That's really big. So 50% off anytime. So
That's all I have, sir. Thank you very much.
all righty. Mr. Paulus?
Nothing to report, sir.
Of course, I have something, shout out to, hi Aaron, the city staff and especially the Parks Department for an outstanding fireworks display. We got lucky and got it in between the raindrops. And I know that our entire team all across the board worked together to pull that off, and I heard nothing but nice things. How many folks here saw or went to the fireworks? Raise your hand. It was good, right? So thank
Good.
you, that's all I have.
Well, thank you. I echo that. On the 3rd, I always go around from neighborhood to neighborhood, as many as I possibly can, and stop at a lot of houses. It's always great to see a lot of people. It's kind of fun to watch where the party's going on at the house, but then where the chairs are ideally just logistically located in their yard, because they know the view is perfect each year. So you might have a party going on, and out back in the back, there's 20 chairs clustered together. So it's always a fun visit and seeing that. So I echo the same thing. Every year they get better. Every year, a great job. The park was exceptional, especially since the rain had come. But I tell you what, Harbin Park was full, probably 1,000. We have a crowd number probably of that. It was really full. The great band was great. It was really cool. So another thing that I do is I speak to 3rd graders. Towards the end of the school year, 3rd graders from each of the elementaries do a field trip coming here to the city building, and they learn a little bit about government, what we do, and then they move over to the police station, and then they go to the courts, and they sit in an actual court session. So it's really a great field trip for 3rd graders. When I'm here, I don't know how exciting they can get on, I can make it for a 3rd grader learning about government, but we really do. I usually have them laughing, and the staff is walking up and down the hallway laughing at me. So, I talk to them about water and where we get our water. And of course, that's always interesting where they think they get their water. And then, of course, I talk to them about when they drink too much water, where they go. They go to Mr. Sackenheim's department, and all that water goes that way, and it goes to the river, and et cetera. So we have a good time with them, and I tell them what they're allowed to, I'm allowed to teach them one bad word. And they all go, yeah? I go, now, this is a really bad word, and you can go home tonight and probably say it once without getting in trouble. And they're so excited. And I tell them, because we're talking about all the different departments, and I say, taxes, So, sorry, Chris, but that, his department's the tax department, but he's the bad word department. And then, of course, I tell them about where the tax money goes, et cetera. But I always get to like to read some. They send tons of letters. I probably got 150, and I went through, and I'm just going to read a few for some humor here. So thank you very very much, Mr. Rodas, for meeting with us. And it's tough reading this handwriting sometimes. Our class last week, I learned that there were several departments working for the government. During your talk, I enjoyed talking about the parks in Fairfield. Thank you for the new highlighter. We gave him some little gifts to give away and all of its colors. Thank you again for making time to meet with our class. When are you coming back? That's, dear Mayor Rodas, thank you for teaching all of the things about the city I live in. If you didn't teach me all those things, when I sadly pay, I forgot this one, when I sadly pay taxes in the future, I would not have known what the money was going for. That's pretty good. The things I really was paying taxes for, and thank you also for the highlighter and the gifts you gave us in local government. Thank you. Then the last one here, I did, like I said, it probably had 200 and some. Thank you for the, dear Mayor Rodas, I love this because I got thanked for the roads. I got thanked for the water and everything that the city does for me. Thank you, Mayor, you're great. When will you drop off the other gifts to us? That was good. I only gave him a couple, so he want 4 more. And he says, when are we coming back? Please come, let us come back. It was a great field trip. So it's always fun to get those, and we let them come up here and sit around, and they get to hit the gavel and they get pictures, and it's a fun day. So now back to council work here. We have a public hearing stated right now for the tax budget public hearing. So, Madam Clerk.
2 copies of the 2025 tax budget as to be tentatively adopted for the City of Fairfield of Butler County, Ohio, are on file in the office of the Clerk of Council of the City of Fairfield. These copies are for public inspection, and a public hearing on said tax budget will be held at the Fairfield Municipal Building, 5350 Pleasant Avenue, Fairfield, Ohio, on Monday, July 8th, 2024 at 7 o'clock p.m.
All right. Any comments from council or staff on this public hearing? All right, hearing none, we'll close that public hearing and move on to the next. This one's a little bit bigger. All right, this is a joint public hearing, and so you guys know the Planning Commission members are in the audience here, and they will be meeting on Wednesday. And at that point is a great time to if you want to come back after the comments today, that's when they kind of get into the nuts and bolts. So we kind of hear what's going on, and it gets presented here, what's planned. And then when you have questions, you can ask. We're going to open up the field today to ask questions. But then the Planning Commission is going to really drill it down. Being a PUD, they can get very detailed. They can even tell them the type of plants they have to plant, the type of lights, and where they're at and where they're aimed. And they can get very detailed at the Planning Commission level. So I'd recommend you being here. That's Wednesday night at 6 o'clock, correct? So Wednesday night at 6 o'clock would be a good nuts and bolts and really get into the details of it. All right. We need a roll call to open this meeting up.
Commissioner Medler, Commissioner O'Brien, Commissioner Hassler, Commissioner Lepsky, Commissioner Davidson, Commissioner Ritchie.
It should be Commissioner Myers.
Commissioner Myers, sorry. And Commissioner Robertson.
Motion and second for excusing. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
All property owners and citizens of Fairfield, Ohio are hereby notified that a joint public hearing between the Planning Commission and City Council has been scheduled for Monday, July 8th, 2024 at 7 o'clock p.m. at the Fairfield Municipal Building, 5350 Pleasant Avenue, Fairfield, Ohio, 45014. The purpose of the hearing is to solicit citizen input regarding the submission of a concept plan for a planned unit development, PUD, for a Wawa gas station and convenience store on 4.6 acres of land at the northwest corner of Pleasant Avenue and John Gray Road. The property is currently zoned C1 Neighborhood Business District. Parties that wish to review the application may do so by visiting the Development Services Department located at the Fairfield Municipal Building or on the Development Services page on the city website at www.fairfield-city.org/devservices. Questions may be directed to the department by telephone at 513-867-5345 or via email at development@fairfield-city.org. The department is open Monday through Friday between the hours of 8 o'clock a.m. and 5 o'clock p.m.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right. At this time, Mr. Kathman, our Development Services Manager, will be presenting the start of it. All yours, sir.
All right, thank you, Mayor, members of council, planning commission, and all the general public that's here. So we are here tonight for a topic that's generated a lot of interest in the community. That is an application to rezone a 4.6 acre property at the corner of John Gray and Pleasant Avenue to allow a proposed Wawa fueling station and convenience store. So just to back up a little bit, because we have a lot of new folks in the audience today, this is a request to rezone a piece of property. The process of undergoing a rezoning is outlined in the city charter, which is like the constitution for the city. So tonight is the public hearing, which is step 2 out of a 5-step process. Step 3 would be at the Planning Commission that the mayor mentioned earlier. So the public hearing provides an opportunity to kind of formally introduce the project to the council, the commission, and the general public, seek initial input and comments back so that the plan can be revised or changed or answer any questions that come up. So planning manager Aaron Lynn and myself, we're going to kind of tag team this staff presentation tonight. Once we're done with our slides, the developer and their team will come up and add some comments. I think they have some slides as well. And then I think the mayor plans to open up the meeting for comments and questions at that point. So, all right, so above on the screen in front of everyone here is an aerial map of the site. So the subject site is at the corner there, outlined in red. It's about 4.5 acres or so, right at the corner. It's currently part of a larger 24-acre site, which is shown here in yellow. The rezoning request is only for the corner site, the 4.5 acres at the corner. The rest of the site would remain in its current zoning. The 24-acre site has been owned by the McGilliard family for several decades at least. I'm not sure how long they've owned it. I talked to John Clemens, one of our historians here in town, and he thinks that it's been a long time that they've owned it. We cannot find any record of the site ever being developed. There's no record of a house or a commercial property on it that we could find. We did see what looked like maybe a barn on it at one point, but I might be wrong about that. Maybe some long-timers here in the community might know better, but I don't know that that's ever been developed. It's been marketed for sale or for development for many years. People have probably seen the sign on the corner for a long time. It's got a lot of challenges, which make it hard to develop. And we'll get into some of those challenges here during Aaron and my presentation tonight. The applicant, which is a company called JTNL Development, they're a local development company. My understanding is they plan to acquire the entire 24-acre site that's shown in yellow, should the rezoning get approved. They would develop the corner site, the 4.5 or so acres on the corner that they would then lease or sell to a Wawa for a gas station and convenience store. They have offered to convey the rest of the site, so approximately 19 acres, at no cost to the city. I'll let them explain their thought process about that offer and why they made that offer and what their plans, what they looked at for the rest of the site and why they made that offer to the city. I'll let them go into that. I do want to dispel one rumor off the top. There's some internet rumors about the rest of the property and already being plans to develop. I can say unequivocally that is not true. The city has no plans for the remaining 19 acres. Internet causes a lot of rumors out there, and there's no current plan for that site. We only know if we'll get it. If the rezoning doesn't happen, the city probably wouldn't even acquire that site. So there's no current plan for that. So I just wanted to dispel that rumor off the top. All right, so as we mentioned earlier, the applicant, the JTNL Development, is requesting to rezone the property from what is currently zoned, which is a C1 neighborhood commercial district, to a PUD, planned unit development zoning. Why do they want to do this? Because a motor vehicle fueling facility is not a permitted use in the C1 zoning district. So a lot of people are asking, what is a PUD, a planned unit development? What is it? Well, it's a deviation from a standard zoning district regulations. So it allows for the city and the developer to cooperatively work and come up with a creative approach to meet the unique characteristics of that site or that building. And then it allows the city to, the zoning code has certain standards that every project has to meet, but we can ask in a PUD for higher standards on things like screening and open space, signage, lighting, that sort of thing. So it's a way to negotiate with the developer and get a better looking, more attractive project. So that's generally what a PUD is. The PUD process really consists of two steps. There is a concept development plan and then a final development plan. This application is for a concept development plan. So it's more of a conceptual design of the project. So you're going to see some slides tonight that show generally where the building sits and generally where landscaping is, and that's where traffic access points are. But it's not as many specifics as what a final development plan would be. If the developer gets approval, when council ultimately votes on this project in a couple months, then the developer would go away and spend a lot of money on architectural engineering, design drawings for submission for the final development plan. The final development plan would have to come back before Planning Commission and council to get passed. They obviously won't do that work if the concept plan is not approved at this stage. So in general, that's the two-step process for PUDs. All right, so we mentioned earlier that the site has a lot of development challenges. So these next two slides, we're going to highlight some of them. One of the major ones is the topography of the site. It's got a lot going on here. So when you look at this map, so if you start on the drawing on the left there, that shows the overall 24 acres. The green, the kind of bright green lines are topography lines that show 10-foot incremental changes to the grading of the site. And the little yellow, kind of orangey yellow lines in between are one foot or 2 foot? 2 foot lines in between. So let me see if this laser pointer works here. Up there it is. So you can see at the site, the highest point in the site is just off the corner. So it actually goes up from the corner to a height of about 740 feet. And then you can see it really drops down, and it drops about 60 feet to the low point, which is down here kind of in the valley here. So a 60-foot drop over the 24 acres, that's a lot. If you look at the corner site in particular, so the drawing on the right, so we zoomed in a little bit here, just even on this 4.5 acre site, it's the 740, and then it drops off. This line here is the 710, and you can see the 700 is just off the screen. So it drops 30 to 40 feet just on this portion of the site alone. So that's a major challenge when somebody looks at developing this site, is moving all that earth. Obviously, it's heavily wooded at this point, so they'd have to remove the trees, move all the soil, try to balance the site out. It's very expensive for any type of development to do. So those are a couple of the challenges. This other slide, so this got a lot going on to it too. Beyond the topography challenges, there's a lot of other development challenges. So I'm just going to kind of run down the line here. So these little dashed red lines here, that shows where Duke Energy they have overhead power lines. So they have an easement that goes to their little substation across the street here. So obviously Duke has restrictions on what can be built underneath utility lines like that. The light blue area that's here, that is a designated 100-year floodplain, which means that this portion, as it currently sits, is unbuildable. You can see the blue lines here. Those are some streams, some recognized streams that are in the area. So we got overhead power lines, we got floodplain in the area. Next, I want to point out a public sanitary sewer line. So this kind of orange color line that runs right through here, that is a public sanitary sewer line. It also comes up here. So the wastewater from this Carousel Circle subdivision actually comes out through these yards and then meets up and then comes down the hill and meets up with this public line. And it eventually gets gathered up together and goes to the wastewater treatment plant. So this site is, if you can see, it doesn't have sanitary sewer anywhere near to it. So in order to service the future gas station, should it be built, they would have to put an underground line probably to this point and then handle the waste. So another cost that any developer would have on this site. Let's see, so the other thing I want to point out here that's rather unusual. So this little area here, which is kind of this light blue area, that is actually the detention basin for the Carousel Circle subdivision. So all of the public infrastructure, when it rains and it gets collected in the curb and the gutter, it gets collected and then it gets routed over to these backyards here. So there's 8 or so backyards where this basin is designed. And the water flows in there, and in heavy rains, it fills up. And that's what a detention basin does. It holds the rain and it fills up, and then it releases it slowly either into the ground or through an outlet on the side of it. The overflow outlet structure, it's hard to see on this map, but there's a little purple line that comes right in here. And so the outlet structure is there. There's also some water that comes from this side of John Gray Road, and there's some streams and things. So this outlet structure and a stream, they all kind of go and they meet here, and then they cross the street and eventually make their way out. So there are some natural streams and some overflows from detention basins, which also kind of bisect the site. So, and then of course there are traffic issues and site access issues, and we know those are major issues and major points of concern. So we're going to have a couple slides on that later in the presentation to focus on that topic. So that is some of the development site constraints and challenges which are on this site, which has led in part to it not developing for all these years. So I'm going to transition now to Erin Lynn, who's going to talk a little bit about planning and zoning and some background on that.
Good evening. So this first slide I want to show you comes from the Fairfield Forward, which is our comprehensive plan for the city. The comprehensive plan actually dedicates a section of the plan to 4 small areas in the city that receive a special focus due to their unique characteristics. And one of those small areas is what we call the John Gray Pleasant small area. Which is obviously where this proposed project is located. So the area outlined in the red dot, everything in there is what is in this John Gray small area. There's a lot going on up here, so I'm just going to kind of go over this in a minute, the map. But so there's some reasons why the comp plan found that this was a special area to focus on. And I'm just going to kind of go over those. One of them, it's a primary gateway into the city from the south. It's less than 2 miles from 275. It contains over 30 acres of undeveloped land, which in Fairfield is very valuable because we are almost built out and we don't have a lot of land left to be developed. It's a small commercial area that's surrounded by well-established residential neighborhoods. And most of those people do utilize Pleasant Avenue, either going north to the town center or hitting the expressway. And then during certain times of the day, most noticeably in the evening time, there is an increased roadway usage in the evening. We call it the peak PM commute, which Greg will talk about in a little bit. So based on these reasons, any type of development within this corridor should be coordinated and it should be selective. So the map that you see here, I just want to kind of go over. These are some recommendations from the comprehensive plan of how the area should be developed. Very specific. It says it recommends a gateway feature at the bottom. So I'll just kind of point that out right here. That gateway feature, because it is a prominent gateway from the south, it's undefined at this time, just some sort of feature. Right now, we have a very small sign that's not very noticeable if you're not really paying attention, and we want people to know that, hey, you are entering Fairfield. We're proud of our city. Another recommendation was that they'll have a sidewalk on Pleasant Avenue going all the way eventually down to the town center. This is to allow the residents who live in this area access to Harbin Park and to the town center. The Fairfield Connects, which, as you know, is our ACTO transportation plan. It's our plan to build more sidewalks and pathways. That upgraded this to a 10-foot wide multi-use path. It recommends that this area, the subject site, actually be a mixed-use, low-density development. What they didn't want to see was it to be developed in a piecemeal manner. Someone cut it up for each little piece and develop it. They wanted a overall master plan. In this case, it's kind of different. They're proposing to convey, should this get approved, the remainder land to the city. But whatever development happens here or doesn't happens at this area, what the plan did call was for a strong buffer to protect the residential neighborhood over here from any commercial development over here. Sometimes you might have some adverse impacts, and they wanted to make sure that it was well buffered. Another recommendation from the plan was to, and Greg kind of hit on this, was to discourage auto-related uses from this corridor, such as gas stations and auto repair places. This is another slide from the Fairfield Forward. It's the land use. Again, it shows how the land should be developed in general terms. Again, the red is the outline of the small area. What this small area proposes is mixed use. So what they envisioned when they adopted this in 2019 was that this whole corridor, this whole small area would be one big mixed use area where the retail and service establishments could be used to provide for the surrounding neighborhoods and the residents. You can see based on this area here, this color, this is all this light pale color is a single family land use. Parks over here, and then this is a pocket of condominiums that you see off of Gelhot. And then this is a Duke substation that probably will be there forever because it's been there forever. Let's see. And then I also wanted to point out that there is also a condo development catty corner from this site in Springfield Township. And then there is additional single family in both in Coleraine and in both Springfield Township beyond the Walgreens. This is the zoning map of the area. And again, this really aligns very closely with the land use map. The white here you see outlines a small area. You can see within here, there's a lot of commercial uses with the prominent zoning a lot of commercial zoning districts, with the most prominent one being the C1, which is the neighborhood business. I just want to read this from the zoning code. It states that the purpose of the C1 district is to promote and protect certain land areas for commercial uses that are neighborhood oriented and generally serve the residents of the surrounding neighborhood. Primary structures are limited to 5,000 square feet in area. So I kind of wanted to point that out to you, that this is the majority, the green is the majority of C1. The surrounding, you can see some R1 and R0. These again are our single family zoning districts. And then again, the multifamily, which is what we use for condominium complexes. As Greg mentioned, the C1 does not permit motor vehicle fueling stations. This is actually a new change. The updated zoning code had it as a conditional use for many years. When we recently adopted back in the spring the new zoning code, we changed it to being prohibited to better align with the comprehensive plan, which had recommended no auto-orientated uses within this corridor. So if you're wondering, hey, where is commercial, or where can gas stations be located? They're permitted in the C3 and the C3A, which is along Route 4. We do have a little section here of C3, but anything in this overlay district, so that's another thing from the comprehensive plan. They took the small area and created an overlay district called the John Gray Pleasant Overlay, and we have special requirements in the overlay, and one of those requirements did say that no gas stations would be permitted in the overlay, so that if you're a C3 or a C2, you wouldn't be able to locate that in this corridor. And then and a conditional use is the C2 and the D1 districts allow a gas station as a conditional use. So the D1 is our downtown, our town center area zoning district, and then the C2 is scattered throughout the city. We don't have a lot of that, but it's mostly up by the mall. That's all zone C2. And this overall general is just a map of the existing uses in the corridor. I'm not really going to go into them, but it's nice to know just from looking at all the uses at one time on this map that you can see what's existing here and what's not been developed yet. We do have, I want to point out, across the street from the site here, there is a small gas station that's been there for many years. Again, this was here, I've been here a while, and it's been here a lot longer than I have. So it was definitely put in, it's zone C1, so that was a conditional use. And then there is an auto repair place right about here. That was approved as a PUD in 2003, both before we made changes to the comprehensive plan and in the zoning code. Next slide here I want to show you is the proposed site plan for the development. Again, at the bottom here is John Gray. Here's Pleasant. And then right over here is the Walgreens. As you can see, the site is heavily, well, I guess previously the site, as you saw, was heavily wooded, so it would require a lot of tree removal and grading in order to create this pad here, as Greg had mentioned. They are proposing a 6,000 square foot convenience store. Wait a minute, a 6,300 square foot convenience store. That's surrounded by parking on all sides, as you can see here. The primary access from the store is here along Pleasant Avenue, which makes sense because here are the canopies, but there also is access in the rear, which is why you can see all this parking here. There also is a drive-through for a pickup window. So on the southern end, right here by John Gray, you will be able to, I guess, pick up online orders. So it's not set up for a drive-through like a McDonald's or a Taco Bell. There's no menu board. There's no outdoor or exterior speakers. It's just if you've already placed an order, you can come pick it up. The applicant has stated that this location, it will be a 24-hour, 7 days a week operation. The pumps here, this is a canopy, a 7,000 square foot canopy with 16 pumps. Now it's actually 8 of those islands, so there's a pump on each side of it. In order to kind of figure out, well, how big is this? There is a, down at the corner of Kemper and Hamilton, there is a speedway. I think that has maybe 18 pumps. So it's not quite as big as that, but it's slightly smaller than that size, just to kind of visualize what it would look like. There is an entrance, full access entrance off of John Gray here, and then a limited right in, right out, along with a access easement in case this development here this land ever gets developed here. We would be able to have connection into this curb cut. One of the things that we don't want to see is a lot of curb cuts on Pleasant Avenue. So by minimizing them and having shared access, that helps out. Detention basin is located in the back here. As Greg Kathman mentioned, there's lots of little streams that run through the site. There's one that kind of comes through here off-site. You can see in the light blue. And then once it gets on the property here where they're developing it, they're proposing to pipe it. And then again, it'll be open and released as you go a little further down. Another thing from the comprehensive plan is, as I mentioned, is to have some sort of gateway feature, again, undefined. But what this plan shows is that they are dedicating the right-of-way that we would need for any sort of gateway feature in the future, should we choose to implement that recommendation. Next thing I want to touch on is a buffer area. So this, again, outline is the 4.5 acre area. This is the kind of the handle of the Panhandle site. It's about 116 feet in width. They are proposing that to be the buffer area. Although this is off-site, it would still be a heavily vegetative buffer. The zoning code really only requires a 25-foot minimum. So they're providing 85 additional feet of buffer area to protect the residents from this development. The city does prefer that actually the developer maintains ownership of this area from here all the way to here. So the site would be enlarged to this property line, and we would ask that it be designated an easement for utilities, access, and for tree preservation. And then one other slide before I hand it back over to Greg is, this is an interesting slide. It's a cross-section of the site as if you were standing from John Gray. So the bottom is a copy. The bottom is a portion of the site plan that you just saw. Down here is probably John Gray Road, and this blue line that goes all the way across is a cross-section that's up here and what you see here. So basically, this is someone's house that is in Carousel Circle. So here's the house, and then they actually have a swimming pool, so it shows that. And then it shows the property line of the backyard of this lot. And then you can see here, this is that vegetative buffer that's 116 feet in width. And then if you go off-site onto the subject site, there's about another 47 feet of land that doesn't have any sort of structure or pavement on it. Then you've got some landscaping screening the site, the parking lot. Then you have about another, I believe it's 80 feet of pavement before you actually get to the convenience store. So you have a total of 352 feet from the convenience store to the rear yard of the houses. And something that I do want to hit on here is that if you look at this and you start from the house, there's a slow, gradual sloping down until you get past the vegetative buffer, and then it hits the stream that I showed you previously. And then this development is post-development site. So what you would see is more of a steeper slope that goes down to the creek, and then it kind of flattens off. So you can kind of see the elevations in this top diagram, which I think is important to show. We have a little bit more, so if everybody can just hold on, there's a lot of information. That's why we're tag teaming tonight. We apologize for the length of it, but we want to make sure that you're all informed and have all the background. There are some traffic concerns, and there was a traffic study that was done, and Greg is going to share with you the results of that.
All right, so I know traffic is a concern for this site. So the developer, whenever a development goes in that is going to generate more than 100 trips per hour? Peak hour trips, they have to do what's called a traffic impact study. And a traffic impact study is it's a formal study performed by a qualified engineering firm to assess the potential effects of a proposed development on the surrounding roadway network. So the developer paid for a traffic impact study. Our city engineer, Nick Dill, has reviewed and accepted the study as accurate and up to industry standards. So TEC Engineering performed the traffic impact study. Their analysis indicated that there would be 506 trips in the AM peak and 430 trips in the PM peak. The trips would not be people necessarily all coming from outside. Most of the trips, actually, the study indicated would be people that are already passing through the corridor, just making a turning movement of some sort into the development. Not all, but a good percentage of those would be. So when you're looking at traffic concerns, traffic engineers look at what's called levels of service, and they measure it on a scale from A to F. And it's just like in school, A is good, means no delay, and F is total gridlock and congestion. So the existing levels of service in that intersection is in the morning, AM peak, it's a level B, and in the afternoon, it's in the PM peak, it's a level C currently. Their analysis showed that if Wawa was to be built in this, the AM peak would actually decrease from a B to a C, but the afternoon peak would remain at the level C. The traffic impact study went on to say that in 2045, whether or not this development is built, the AM peak would and by their evaluation, would remain a level C, and the PM peak would reduce to a level D. That's with or without this development. Traffic is going to get more and more congested, particularly in the AM peak or PM peak. The worst impact that they identified in their evaluation was the eastbound left turn movement. So if you're on John Gray wanting to go northbound on Pleasant Avenue, they said that will be the worst, most congested part of the impact. One other recommendation that they made to alleviate some of the PM peak traffic was to, in the future, not as part of this development, but allow in the future for a southbound right turn lane. So if you're going southbound from this area, say down towards John Gray, towards the highway, you could add a right turn lane onto John Gray Road, from Pleasant onto John Gray Road. That would allow for some traffic to get off of Pleasant. That would allow the engineers to adjust the signal timing a little bit. That would help a bit, but it would still not, it would still be probably in the level D category. I should have said in the beginning, I'm not a traffic engineer. I'm just playing one on TV tonight. We do have an engineer in the room, so if I say anything wrong, I'm sure he'll cut me off. But that is kind of an overview summary of the traffic impact study. The whole impact study, by the way, is on our department website. So if anyone wants to read the 81-page technical analysis of the traffic impact study, it's all there for anyone to look at. Our city engineer did make 6 recommendations as a result of the traffic impact study and just general evaluation of the site characteristics of the area. The first one is an easy one, just dedicate additional right-of-way on John Gray and Pleasant as needed. So we have asked for some land donations. The only full access into the site would be from John Gray Road here. So you would see it here. And there's 3 driveways basically shown. One driveway in, one going out, turning left, one going out, turning right. It lines up with the Walgreens development to the south. Initially, our preference was to move. Generally, you want to move intersection or access points farther away from the intersections. But the way the site works, it kind of the topography changes. The engineers felt it would be kind of dangerous and there'd be some site visibility issues if you moved it down. So after careful consideration, the engineers determined that location across from Walgreens would be the best site for the full access point. On Pleasant Avenue, so point number 3 here, recommendation, this would be a right in, right out only. So if you're going southbound, you'd be able to pull in and enter the site here. And then if you wanted to leave, you could come out and take a right out of the site. There would be no left-hand turns into the site from northbound Pleasant Avenue and no left-hand turns out of the site onto northbound Pleasant Avenue. And it would be built at the Butler County right in, right out standard, which they call the pork chop design, which is meant to make it harder for people to make that illegal turn. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. So point number 4, the 4th recommendation. So right now, as you're on John Gray Road and you're wanting to turn left go northbound on Pleasant Avenue, there is a dedicated turn lane. That turn lane kind of tapers down right here where the entrance point is. So the recommendation is design a longer turn movement here, or turn lane here, so that somebody can pull in a safe manner. That's point number 4. Point number 5 is basically if the city ever wants to develop and build this southbound right turn lane that I discussed earlier, they said don't build anything in it. Don't put any signs or any mechanical equipment or anything in here that would need to be relocated. So that's point number 5. And point number 6, as Aaron referenced a little bit, our Fairfield Connects plan. So the site does, the site does have a current sidewalk along John Gray Road here. It ends at the intersection. The Fairfield Connects plan calls for a 10-foot multi-use path all the way down here. So the developer would be requested to install that 10-foot multi-use path as part of their project cost. So those are the traffic slides, high points that I wanted to touch on a little bit. I'm now going to turn it back to Aaron to wrap it up here. We just have a couple more slides.
Okay, again, thank you all for hanging in there. These last slides are just some elevations of the building and the canopy. So what you see here, and I'm going to go over what these, this is the convenience store. The top is what you would see from Pleasant Avenue. So if you're parking your car and getting gas and you want to go in, that's where you would go in at. The middle is the rear. Again, it's the rear side does have access into the building. The bottom left is the John Gray elevation. And again, this would be that drive-through and that pickup window area right about here. And then on the bottom right is the north-facing elevation. The building materials consist mostly of brick, composite siding, which is like, if you heard, hardy plank, and in EFS as well. This is the gas canopy, or the gas pump canopy. One of the requirements in the zoning code for gas stations is that the canopy is to be constructed substantially of the same material as the building. They are proposing a metal canopy, and then some of the metal posts wrapped in brick, and the brick would match the building. The canopy is an angle, so the highest part of the angle, which is about 20 feet, would be closest to the building. And then these are just some additional slides. These are some 3D perspectives. This is what they envision it would look like from the middle of the intersection. And then these are some flyovers. So this would be what they would envision the site would look like looking north. And then again, this would be the one looking south with the Walgreens in the background. Just wanted to wrap up with everything that you saw tonight, and all the site materials are on our website. This is our website up here, but if you just go to our website and you can't remember the rest, just go to Development Services homepage, and it's the very first item on that page. We have everything we've talked about tonight, the meeting schedule, the aerials, some other information, the staff report that we write for Planning Commission that will be discussed Wednesday was on there. This presentation will be on there tomorrow. So all of that, we just wanted to be transparent to all involved. And then this is the slide we always wrap up with. This is the meeting schedule. So as Greg mentioned, it's 6 meetings. We've already had the first meeting in June, which was the first reading. Nothing happened there. It just introduces the legislation into the record and sets the public hearing date. That's where we're at tonight. This is the public hearing. We will be meeting in 2 days for Planning Commission at 6 p.m. So tonight, 7 p.m. Wednesday is 6 p.m. Let's see. And there we will discuss a little bit more detail about this, about the project, and have it a little bit more in the weeds, but not too much in the weeds, because again, this is still a concept plan. And then if Planning Commission feels, and sometimes they either ask staff or they ask the applicant to provide more information, they may ask for a second meeting. So if there is a second meeting, that will be on July 24th. Our council does meet in the summertime once a month. So if they do have a written recommendation either for or against, we would envision that to be at the August 12th meeting. And then there's a third and final reading for this in September. So again, if you want to follow along, this meeting schedule is on our website. If you have any questions for Greg or myself, we'd be happy to answer them.
I do, Aaron. Is it okay, Mr. Mayor? No, these are general. Great presentation, Aaron and Greg. Appreciate it. So I learned quite a bit here. So this is a 24/7 operation.
Yes, yes, they are.
And it will be lit during that entire time.
That is our understanding, unless we hear differently from the developer, who will be able to address that. We do have a condition of approval that we are recommending, and we will talk about it Wednesday at Planning Commission. It's because that it's proposed to be 24/7 that, you know, lighting can be a nuisance, and that we would ask that they dim the site or turn off some of the lights after a certain point.
Question for you on the elevation that you showed was a good elevation. It showed the neighbor's yard here with the pool and so forth. Then you've got.
Do you want to see it?
Yeah, bring it up there. Yeah, that's it. So you've got the gentleman on the far left looking through here. What I'm worried about is not this time of year. It gets winter here and all that foliage is gone. You've got that strong lighting, and that person, if this is accurate, and I don't know what the model looks like, has a direct line of sight with the lighting into the back of Wawa. It looks that way. Is that correct?
That would be a correct statement. Again, I would have to have the applicant address that.
Yeah.
They would be required to do a tree preservation. We could require them to do, well, no, that's for the site. I take that back. But yes, I don't know if the site is all deciduous or if it's a combination of deciduous and evergreen. But to your point, yes, the leaves will leave and it will leave open. The opacity would diminish greatly.
And one other question. Thank you, Aaron. Do we have any other gas stations that, I call it 360 in the round? I don't know of any in Fairfield that truly you have this convenience store in the center, but you have parking and traffic around the entire, I don't know, Greg, if you know.
Well, we do have 3 other Wawas that were approved in the city.
But do we have any gas stations like this?
Right, well, I'm assuming that some of those developments probably are designed the same
Okay.
way.
It's an unfair question. That's all I have. Thank you.
Any other questions for? Okay, if not, I'm going to introduce the developer's representative, Jonathan Wolker, to speak. And I've got a set of slides, and if you give me a second, I should get this right and get it to him. Okay. Okay, Jason, it's not working. He said Control Tab and then it will come up. That's the one I want. That one there, yeah. Never mind, I've got a computer expert. This button is the red.
Good evening. My name is Jonathan Woker. I'm a planner with McBride Dale Clarion. I'm representing STNL Development. Just want to make that clear. It is STNL, not JTNL Development. And we are requesting this zone map amendment. Staff has gone through a pretty thorough presentation, and they made me aware that they were going to go through a lot of those details. So they've kind of hit on a lot of the information that was in my initial presentation. And so what I'd like to do is give a pretty brief presentation of some information, knowing that we've got a planning commission presentation in a couple of days and that we're going to dig into those details. I do want to thank staff. They have shared their staff reports and information, so we're aware of the conditions that they've presented. So with that, I'll go through my presentation. I do want to ask a representative from Wawa to speak after me, and then obviously we'll try and answer questions that you have. So as I say, this is a zone map amendment and a concept development plan. Properties at John Gray Road. It is 24.1 acres. We are requesting just a zone change for the 4.6 acres. That means that there would be 19.5 acres that we are proposing to donate to the city. STNL is the developer, and I've listed the owner, the engineer, and McBride Dale Clarion, we are the planner, and then Wawa will be the future tenant. I want to pause there for a second. There was a question about why we're proposing to donate the land, and I can probably show on this a little bit. So we've met with staff over the course of several months and presented a few different options. One of the options we presented was to ask for a PUD for the whole 24 acres. We actually filed it that way and amended it later to just ask for a PUD for the 4.5 acres. And the answer to the question of why are we proposing to donate to the city is really twofold. One is because we think that's the best way to protect the remaining undeveloped portion of the land, that it provides the best opportunity for a buffer, that it limits development at the intersection, and two, it then puts control in the city's hands, basically your hands, the city council, into how this property develops in the future. That's not, and that's the beginning and end of that. Really is we were trying to come up with a way that we could develop the corner that we think is developable and that has function for the use we're proposing, and at the same time, present an option that we think addresses many, probably not all, but many of the components that your future land use plan recommends, right? And so that's the thought process behind that, and I'm gonna talk about that a little bit more as we go through this. So this is our development plan. Again, you've seen a lot of this in different forms. We're at the corner. I think staff did an excellent job of presenting the constraints to this property. We're not the first developer to look at this property. Interestingly, the comprehensive plan talks about the development potential of these 24, 30 acres, but the development potential is pretty substantially hindered by all of the constraints that were presented to you by your staff. The easements, the slopes, the streams, the wooded nature of it, the sanitary, electric, the floodplain, and so on. So, I mean, it's a pretty constrained property. And for that reason, we think that a PUD is the right zoning to use, right? So you have options in your zoning code that allow you to look at different ways of zoning, right? We call it straight letter zoning, the C3, the C3A, the C2, the C1. Those are basic zoning options. And then you have a tool called a PUD, right? And the PUD allows you to look at a piece of land and basically apply a site plan. And there's no mystery of what will happen here, right? We are putting before you and the public what will develop on this property to a certain extent, right? The uncertainty is if the city accepts the 19-acre donation of land, then you would have control of that development, right? So we're not trying to pin you in on what you're going to do with that, but we think you're the best body to decide how that develops. And I think that when you look at a combination of things, when you look at the comprehensive plan and the series of recommendations that it makes, which include mixed-use nature development, but you layer that on top of the pretty significant development constraints that are presented on this property, the grades, the streams, the easements, the billboards, so on, that you end up with what we think is a opportunity here to say, okay, we're going to develop at the corner with losing that screen. We'll develop at the corner with a use that maybe is a little more intense than the city envisioned, but part of the trade-off would be that we're going to protect, 70% of the land and be in control of that. That it presents opportunities to provide gateways and multi-purpose trails and tree preservation and significant buffers, maybe a connection to Harbin Park and so on, right? It limits curb cuts. It has a flaw, right? One of the flaws is that the viability hinges on an auto-oriented use. So I think, that's kind of our story. It's not difficult to understand. We've looked at this, and again, other developers have looked at it too. And my understanding is that they were multifamily developers, that they were office, commercial developers, a whole range of developers, because this is a prime property, right? We all know that 24 acres in Fairfield is not easy to come by, but there's a reason that the sellers haven't developed it. So our plan is to ask you to approve a PUD that develops the 4.6 acres at the corner and then protects, preserves the remainder for you to decide how to develop that. We feel that, we can agree to the conditions that Ms. Lynn outlined, where that line is drawn. I do this right. If that means that this becomes part of the ownership and an easement, I don't think that's the linchpin in this project, but, our intent would be for that 116 plus or minus feet to be a buffer area. And if that means that that's part of the PUD and that becomes part that we own or that becomes part that the city owns, I don't think that that's a material issue really. So we don't have an objection to that because we don't intend to develop there. And we want it to be a buffer between the proposed property and the Carousel subdivision. So I've kind of gone off script a little bit, but staff's presentation was pretty thorough, and, I wanted to hit on a couple of those bigger picture questions. Why are we doing this and what are we trying to achieve? And I don't think that there's no nefarious nature to it. We are trying to present a plan that we think you will approve. And in doing that, we've done more work than we're required to do, right? We've done landscape plan and grading plans, and we've done, a lighting plan. We've done more than your concept plan requires. And why do we do that? Because you need to see that. I think you need to see that we are proposing a quality development that's well thought out, that has answers to most of your questions. I'm sure there will be questions that we can't answer, but we've got, we know what we want to do there. And I think that could help you understand or make your decision that we are taking this project seriously and showing that there is a reason to do a lighting plan now, and there is a reason to understand landscaping, and there is a reason to do all these things. And we don't have to submit building elevations, all that stuff. We think that specifying Wawa and talking about that will help you make your decision. So I had planned to talk a lot about Wawa and explain what they are, and I'm still going to talk about that. They've got a strong history. They didn't start selling gas until, the late 1990s. They started as a dairy farm and then became a market, and they became known for food. That's what they're known for, right? So we are not saying we're not selling fuel because we are. We've got 8 dispenser islands out there, but we're different, right? This is a different convenience store, and they have a reputation for having strong food service, and they have over 1,000 stores in Mid-Atlantic. And, we've provided all this information. This is also on the website, so if you wanted to see that. And they have a reputation for being good community neighbors, right? They donate, they support. They are ready when there's a food bank need, and they support the first responders. I should have made this slide in the lower left bigger, but, there's some images here. People have weddings and birthday parties at Wawa's. I'm from Ohio. I've worked on a lot of convenience stores, never heard of that. Wawa has catering. They cater. Why would somebody cater a gas station food, right? Well, you have to ask yourself that, and the answer is because people want to eat that food, right? And they ship the food across to soldiers in, out of the country. I mean, people tattoo Wawa on their arms. So there's something about Wawa that does make them different. Right? So this slide shows you, daily service. They sell a lot of hoagies and they sell a lot of coffee and soft drinks. This is about a $6 million investment. Company-owned stores. They're ESOP. They've got good benefits. And then we can provide information. They donate to national charities as well as local charities. And then I've got a bunch of food slides, but I'm not going to read all that to you. They have lunch, breakfast, and dinner, and they have everything in between, and they're known for build to order. So what that means is you can walk in and you punch in on the kiosk and you tell them what you want, and that's made. Now they have some grab and go sandwiches too over here, and you can get your chips and you can get your Gatorade, but this is what they're known for, and their frozen drinks and all kinds of things. And part of our plan is to have a restaurant to go concept. So again, this is not an Ohio thing that I'm used to, but you will order online or on an app, and we'll have a pickup window, and you will be told when to come and get it, and it'll be ready for you. And you don't have a menu board. We don't have a speaker, right? So there's not going to be the audio, chicken nuggets on the, that's not happening. It's going to be pull up, and it's a different kind of concept. And again, they've got the catering and the delivery. So Wawa's, coming into Ohio pretty strong, and they're committed to this concept, and they feel strongly that they're unique. I know I need to keep moving. A couple points I do want to touch on. Staff covered most of the items. We do have some future EV sites. So we've got locations identified on our plan where we will have future electric vehicle charging stations. That would be coordinated based on market demand and with Tesla. So, but we're planning ahead for that. I think it's important to note that, we're planning for an access easement. We've got all the auto oriented to Pleasant. We do have 2 entrances. The way this store typically operates is that the food tends to come in the back door. So if I'm coming to get my hoagie, I tend to come in the back door. And if I'm coming to get my fuel and maybe some tobacco products or whatever, I'm coming in the front door, right? That's obviously not required, but that's the flow that tends to happen, and that's why that front and rear is important. I think that's important. Let me look at my notes here. We did do a cross-section because we want to show what's there. And I'm sure there will be questions. I don't have all the answers tonight, I'm sure, but we're going to take those down. We will have a retaining wall just south of where this cross-section will be. So there will be grading on this site. As Ms. Catherine pointed out, there's some substantial grade, but we'll be able to create a development parcel here that works and maintain 115 feet of undisturbed area plus another 60 feet or so of what would normally be called buffer, right? That we would normally build and just plant in. And so our store is about 250 feet from that property line. I believe, Ms. Lynn, that we're 300 and some from the back of the house, but our store is going to be, 250 feet from this line that we don't intend to cut trees down from. I don't think I need to talk about this. We think we meet your PUD and overlay guidelines. If you're not familiar, they've got requirements for types of materials and articulation and so on. We think we meet that, and we'll work with your staff and Planning Commission on that. We think that we have a good PUD plan here, that it is not perfect. If we wouldn't be here if we didn't need to change, right? The reason we're here is because your plans and your codes say no auto-oriented uses. And we're not trying to hide from that. I do think that this is not your typical convenient gas station, that it is Wawa, which is different. And I think we've hit several of the targets that you put in front of us. We've got a gateway feature, we've got a multi-use path, we've got limited access, we've got a substantial buffer, and the 5th one is auto use. And that frankly is the trade-off that we're asking for. We're asking you to approve what we believe is a top-of-market convenience store for this corridor. And you probably know, we just talked about it, there's several Wawa stores in Fairfield already planned, and why do you need one more? Well, Fairfield's got multiple transportation corridors, right? You don't, Pleasant is one, but you have multiple transportation corridors. We think that this corridor can support this top-of-market convenience store and that the traffic and the site layout work, and we think that the way to accomplish your plan is to use a PUD and use the design standards to accomplish a plan that provides all those things, the buffering and the architecture and the gateway and all those elements. I'm not prepared to talk about all the traffic because I'm not a traffic engineer, but we've got the study. What I can say is that we're aware of the 6 conditions that your traffic engineering department recommend and that we agree to those. That our plan accounts for the right-of-way and the access restrictions and all the others. So that wasn't done in a vacuum. We've worked with Hamilton County and your city staff to make sure our study hit those items, and we believe it does. So I think this plan shows a buffer. Those trees may not all be there, but we think it's pretty accurate. I think it also shows the multi-use path going north along Pleasant Avenue. And we would be north of an existing commercial retail use. And that would be the limits of it, right? That would be the limit of the commercial development until you decided to do something different. So, we appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about this. I know these are contentious situations and I don't envy the position you're in, but I do feel like our team's worked hard to come up with a good plan, and we're gonna keep notes and try and answer questions so that when we get to Planning Commission, we'll be ready. I'm gonna ask Patrick Warneman to speak. He's with Wawa, and he promised me he'd be brief because I knew I'd be long, so I'll let him come up.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Patrick Warnement. I work for Wawa. Our corporate address is 260 West Baltimore Pike, Wawa, Pennsylvania, 19063, but I live in Westchester, Ohio. Wawa started in the early 1800s by a family called the Wood family, and it was an iron foundry in New Jersey. Obviously, things have changed since then. Some of the Wood family got into the cotton business and eventually dairy, and from the early 1900s to the 1960s, it was a dairy business. 1960s, dairy home deliveries basically didn't occur anymore. They needed something to do to keep the dairy business going, and they started food marts. And from the 1960s to 1996, they were small grocery stores for all practical purposes. 1996, we started selling fuel. So when we talk about food, it's real. It's not just a line we use at meetings like this. It's very real. We have about 45,000 people. Jonathan kind of mentioned our ESOP. Me and the rest of the people that work at the store and everybody own part of the company. So in the convenience store industry, the typical employee's been at their job less than 1 year. Our stores are 7+ years, I think largely because of the benefits. You get health insurance, you get a bonus check, you get ownership in the company. They are actually good jobs that you have upward potential and all that. So I think Jonathan's slide was a little bit outdated. Our investment's more about $7.5 million with current conditions in the economy. So obviously, we've committed to over $400 million in Ohio. So obviously, Aaron mentioned several of those in Fairfield. So that's very significant. Jonathan mentioned some of our philanthropy. I think that slide was a little outdated too. In the last 10 years, it's about $160 million. Some of that's American Red Cross, USO, big national partners, but it can go all the way down to like the high school marching band. Okay, so it can get very, very local, and that's something that we're very committed to. We do have we're the largest Tesla charging partner in the whole United States. We've got about 150 plus of our 1,000 stores that actually have the units installed. So we basically set it up, and then as their business grows and changes, they kind of figure out when to install those, and they have to come back here and do their whole thing. So I doubt they'd go in day one, but we do set it up for them. We're, like I say, 1,000 plus stores. Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana are 3 of our big growth areas, so you'll see a lot of news about us throughout the region here. We've got about 40 employees per store and no fewer than 3 per shift. So even at that, 2 or 3 in the morning, we've got 3 people there. So I think that's quite a bit different than some of our competition. We love this site. We think it's great. I mean, with the buffering and such that we've done here, we're really trying hard to meet the intent of the area. Obviously, it's got a commercial zoning today that we don't fit in, but I mean, I think it's intended to be commercial in nature overall. So you mentioned the buffer in the wintertime. If we could put a decorative fence or something up to help with that, we'd gladly do it. Or work with whatever the solution is, but we'd certainly happily do something like that. If there's anything else we can answer, certainly I'm glad to do that. And anything more about the company or safety policy or anything like that, we're certainly wanting to work with you. And I mean, obviously the rest of the site is very difficult, or there'd be something there today. So like Jonathan said, we think the best solution is for the city to control that and figure it out over time, what makes sense, or maybe nothing at all. Who knows? That's up to you.
Yeah, actually, I do have a question. First of all, very informative. So Greg, thank you to you and your staff. Thank you both as well for a lot of information. I think everybody can appreciate the transparency of what you guys are trying to do, so thank you for that. One of the things that we've done well previously in Fairfield is we can put car lots up and down Route 4. We do that very well, as you've seen. We've actively tried to take...
We've already torn one of them down.
Thank you for that. Thank you. So we take active steps now, most recently, to make sure that we can not have that happen in the future anymore. So I think maybe some of the concerns, at least some that have been addressed to me, is you go south on Pleasant Avenue, you pick up 2 gas stations with a UDF and a Speedway. Speedway found it advantageous to put another Speedway about a mile from another Speedway. And then you go down even further, closer to 275, there's another gas station. There's a family-owned gas station that's just up the street that we talked about tonight, and then you get into the town center area and we have more gas stations. So my question is, from a business perspective, what kind of analysis have you guys done to ensure that not only is this a sustainable business, if we go and take up this plot of land and we put this infrastructure in our city, what kind of business studies have you done to guarantee that that's going to be a sustainable business model?
Sure. So a typical site for us is about 2 acres and at a signalized intersection with 25,000 plus vehicles. That's kind of our standard. So we look at fuel projections, merchandise projections on the opening year and at full maturity. And I mean, we've got all the confidence in the world in this site as far as the business case goes.
And not to affect or not to affect other standings. I know your concern's not necessarily with the competition that's there, but there's a family component to our community, and that we'd be remiss if we didn't be concerned with some of the businesses that are currently there right now.
Certainly. I mean, we've been asked that before, and I say typically, I mean, that's up to them. They have to provide an offering to their customers that keeps their business going. I will say, in Liberty Township, we had one of our competitors across the street completely tear down their store and rebuild it to make it bigger and nicer. So maybe that's anecdotal. Maybe we'll see more of that. I don't know. But, you know, if anything, you know, I think competition's healthy and makes everybody better. So.
I do have another question, Mr. Mayor. Yeah. Thanks again for the presentation. We have an upscale neighborhood that's adjacent to your proposal. And in doing so, like myself, one of the largest investments people will make in their lifetime is in their houses. And the value of those homes are so critically important. And I am worried, and by the way, I'm not taking anything away from the Planning Commission and the hard decision and the discussion that they're going to have. But have you done any studies on, and this may be very unfair, where your gas stations have impacted the financial appraisal of the homes around it? And what does that do? Because I am worried, I am concerned.
Sure, to my knowledge, we've never done a study like that, but we've got dozens and dozens of examples of being in affluent, single-family areas with, you know, no major issues.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. You may be called back up.
Sure.
Catherine, can you tell us, the C1 zoning, it's always good for people to understand.
If I turn off my microphone. It's always good for people to understand what could go there under the current zoning and without any of this meeting going on or any meetings really at all. So in C1, give me some ideas, or maybe Aaron, C1 that are approved uses that could go there without any public input.
Okay, so currently in the C1, these are uses that are, they're either just permitted, they're permitted with some conditions, or they're conditional use, which would require planning commission approval. So the permitted are animal hospital, an art type of exercise studio, oh yeah, I said that, fitness studio, government offices, some sort of media studio, medical offices, a micro fulfillment center, which is that DoorDash, DoorMart offices, a personal service like, you know, a hair salon or getting your nails done, some sort of retail. And then conditional uses would be some sort of community facility, a daycare center, an education facility, a funeral home, some sort of private club or a lodge, you know, like the Elks or the Moose. Recreation facility, a religious facility like a church, and a restaurant. Those are all conditional uses.
Okay, it's always good to know that when you're going, everybody out there. All righty. So at this time, if you'd like to come up and say something, now keep in mind, Wednesday night, the Planning Commission is going to nail down on this even more so, and you'll have plenty of time there to talk too. I don't want to cut you off. You're welcome to do it here, and you're welcome to do it there, or both. But if you do, you come up, state your name and address for the record, and then you can address your comments now or Wednesday night.
I don't know how this is going to flow because there's a lot of handwritten notes here.
That's okay.
The name's Gary Webb. I live at 54 Carousel Circle, which is a house. Right as you come to the stop sign, you're looking right at it. Tim, I appreciate you and your comments. Adam, I appreciate you and your comments. There's a lot of smart people here, and I'm not one of them. I'm just a common sense kind of guy. I have worked with Fairfield. I've worked with Rick on sidewalks, and I've worked with Nathan and Matt on the resurfacing of with my sprinkler system. So they've been nothing but, they worked with me 100%. Now, my first questions I had, and it's still confusing to me, is this to get our feedback or for us to be informed as residents of Carousel Circle?
It's a feedback, so it's open forum, and the planning commission is going to take all the feedback today and all the feedback Wednesday. They're gonna beat it up, and they may vote yay, nay, and
Very
come
good.
back.
Thank you.
Yep.
I got that 80-page document here in front of me. It's about 65 pages of appendices, which I guess are studies. And I would have thought feedback might have been more upfront than in arrears of all these studies, but I don't understand what goes on, so that's just a comment. One of the things I do have concern with is, I did hear tonight, there's only one way out on John Gray if you need to go north on Pleasant or east on John Gray. Is that right? That's on the side.
That's the side, right, south end.
All right. My experience, and I've been Carousel Circle since 1990, had the house built, so I've been there for a while, is that backs up to Walgreens pretty regularly. And this is coming out right at Walgreens, so I understand, at least that's what I heard tonight. So what I'm concerned with is people's gonna turn right, turn into Carousel Circle, do a U-turn at the stop sign. So there's two houses that'll get 100% of that traffic. My house will get 96% of that traffic. I'm kind of a yard guy, and I go out there and fix tire marks all the time with people. Miss it and can't do a U-turn. That's just a personal thing, so. The green space is much appreciated, but it was identified that there are downfalls to that. I heard there was gonna be a wall. Now, I don't know if there's still that in the plans or not, but I don't think I heard definitively there was gonna be a wall, then green space, but I heard it. I heard a fence maybe, or some decorative fence.
Yeah,
So here's that 116 feet
Mhm.
off-site that's to be preserved. This is their site to be developed. This, once they get post-development, it's gonna have some slopes that go downwards. So right here, they have to build a retaining wall to hold the slope up.
Oh, the retaining wall is for retaining. It's not
Yeah.
for,
No, it's right here to hold the site. So
I was understanding there was gonna be a wall behind it, helped with some of the, in any way. I don't know what else I got here to say. I mean, mostly it's probably got something to do with traffic. I appreciate, Tim, your concern about the values. I mean, we all work hard to keep the values of the house up, and we expect them to continue to go up. I mean, with the market. So that's what I have, and I will let other people join in and go from there. So I appreciate your time.
thank you.
Thank you.
My name is John Burton. My wife and I live at 19 Carousel with our daughter. So I've heard a lot tonight about why this is good for Wawa, and I've heard a lot about why it's not bad for us, but I haven't really heard anything about why it's good for us. Anyone who lives in that area knows that that traffic's already awful. We've seen a traffic study now showing that it will get worse, and we're aware of that. As a side note, so 2012 started in law enforcement with Coleraine. And if you go, you guys mentioned the Speedway in UDF, if you go south. I can't tell you how many times I've been there. That intersection and up by the highway gets weird with Forest Park, Coleraine, Springfield Township, right? Robberies happen there all the time, like all the time. It's not a robbery, it's a trouble run, it's people going in there drunk. Now we're gonna put a 24/7 gas station, probably the nicest one around, 100 yards from our homes, right? When people do this kind of stuff, they don't just go in and leave. They tend to park on a side street or have someone, drop them off, go pull on a side street, commit the robbery, run out the back door. Now they're running through our yards. Now Carousel Circle is where they're getting picked up, right? These are the things that I'm thinking about just from my perspective. On top of that, I lived in Coleraine when I worked there, unfortunately. Coleraine Avenue is developed like every inch that they have. We've seen how that's gone. If you ever, hopefully you don't, take Coleraine Avenue, between October and January, you're not going anywhere fast, right? What I'm getting at is, I'm afraid you're gonna drive people away from Fairfield by doing this, whereas if I'm gonna come out and turn northbound, or I could turn south and go to Springdale or anywhere else, we love going, we use the parks, we use the library, we go down to Fairfield Greens all the time. But if it's gonna take me 15 minutes to get there now because of traffic, I'll go somewhere else. Or guys are gonna go a different way, or they're gonna turn and go the other direction. So just from my point of view, don't know if those are things that have been thought of, but that's where we're at with it.
Thank you. Go ahead, sir. Notice I said, sir.
I have to put this down.
Put the mic
John-
down further.
They're okay. Thanks, Commissioner. John Camardo. I live at 6346 Greenbrier Drive in Fairfield. And I'd say this whether we had the meeting or not. Every one of you should be proud. I've always said this, Fairfield, it's a community. Everything that you guys do, put on, present, it's always a family atmosphere. And then tonight I come here and you two gentlemen bring up some great ideas I never even thought about. The 24/7 scares me. Here's my point. It was brought up by the gentleman before. We're going to turn that into Coleraine Avenue. If you go right across where Wawa is, we are one place away from that being an abandoned corner. So then there'll be a vape shop or something else that is going to go in there. That's going to be abandoned. Guaranteed it's going to be abandoned. Let's go next step. There's a lot right there for lease. What's going to go in there? Somebody's going to see that Wawa. Now they say, hey man, I'm going to put something over there. Now we got more traffic. Continue on. We have a small business at Ameristop. It's a local business. We need to be supporting that business. This poor guy's not going to have a chance against Wawa. He's not going to have a chance. Let's continue on down. Take a right. You got the snow nails and behind the Ameristop. We got a lot. We got a lot that's for lease. Let's put something there. All right. Come back out. Go cross from Ameristop heading, what did they be, north on Pleasant. We've got a building there that's half leased. Leave the green space. We don't have to develop it. Let me ask you this. What study was done? What kind of income is this going to bring into the city? There's got to be some study done. What kind of income are we getting out of this thing?
Well, we get income tax off the
That's my
employees that
point.
work.
That's what,
It's an
that's,
income tax.
that's what my point. Is the income tax worth setting off the congestion? And we come into Fairfield and the first thing you're going to see now is this massive gas station, abandoned places on the side. Leave the green space. You don't need it. The business here, Ameristop supports what we need. We got 50 other gas stations going left and right if we need to go there. And I'm telling you what's a fact. If you put that's right there, that development. That is nothing for those people that live in that carousel circle. That is nothing to be that. I ask every one of you when you vote, if you lived in there, would you want that right behind your? No way would you want that behind there. There is no way. And if we could put up that other, there was a nice a few slides ago that shows the station in itself. It's like a 3D view. I don't know if somebody can put that up. It's yeah. Keep going.
I'm good. Tell me when to stop.
Right, no, one more, right there, right there. Oh, one more. Anybody notice anything about that? You got 2 cars. You'll have 400 cars. You can't get out of it. You can't get out where I live on Greenbrier. It looks nice, but that's not the real picture. On Greenbrier, I can't even turn left now on Pleasant. I can't even turn left. Fairfield's great. You guys should be proud of what you do. Let's not put everything on the corner so we can turn into Coleraine Avenue and be bumper to bumper coming in and out. And let's hear from the small businesses that are still there, that are, if they go out, we have more abandoned lots. So thank you for your time. Thank you.
Sorry.
Well, I'm going to represent a veteran of Fairfield, maybe more like Mitch. Been here since '55, actually before it was a city.
Yep.
So I've got a little bit of history with this place. My name's Mike Keller. I live on 13 Carousel Circle. And I've lived on Walter Avenue, and I've lived on Polo Springs and Richards Drive and just a lot of other places. So I've seen what's happened when you put something like this in the community. And really, a lot can be reflected by the people who have already been here. One of the biggest things that I see that I think probably we might want to talk to the legal people or the police about what impact this has when you have a 24-hour operation being in basically in a residential area, and how that's going to pan out. That's besides the traffic that you're going to be dealing with and all that. And then all of this boils down to maybe getting some type of a study, and I know we've got some folks on council that are realtors, and they might be able to give us a little insight on what impact that's going to have on the value of our homes. So I guess the biggest thing I've got going for me is I've seen this happen, and I've lived in Fairfield my whole life. I've gone to Fairfield schools and graduated from them, so I can speak to it from that standpoint. Of course, my nephew was a councilman here too, so. But that's my biggest concern is property value, crime, which has been brought out by some of the other folks.
All right, thank you, sir.
Bill Roth, 1622 Oak Valley Drive. I've been a resident for 50 years in Fairfield. Seen a lot of changes. I've participated in meetings to make the city better. And walking in here tonight, I was shocked to hear that it's not just this lot that we're looking at putting the Wawa in. There's already one going in up at Sims and Route 4. And now you tell me you got another one planned further down Route 4, I suppose, on Mac. And I am shocked at what Wawa is trying to do and take over our city. You know, they come in here and flex their muscles like, you know, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. And quite honestly, I'm offended by that. And to have them come in here and invade not just Fairfield, but Ohio. These things are going to be spread. I heard that they already have 1,200 stations. Their goal in the next year is to add another 1,000. Who are you kidding? You know, we don't need another gas station in this city. Period. And I think that, you know, I mean, I've lived here for 50 years. I've never spent more than a minute waiting for a fuel pump. And why do they think that they can come in here and tell us what's good for us? We know what's good for us, and that is not to have a humongous gas station on Hamilton Avenue and John Gray Road, period. And I've seen these gas stations up and down the expressways. Some of them are much bigger than this, where they're putting in, I think, 50 and 60 pumps. I mean, how much gas can we use? And this country's talking about going electric. We don't need Wawa in Fairfield. Why don't you wait and see what happens on Route 4 with the two they've got planned before we pile another one on top of it, let alone in a residential area. So I am totally against this, and I hope it's not approved. Thank you.
Scott Bollinger, 174 Cole Drive. I just got two quick questions. First of all, we keep saying it's only it's going to be 260 feet from the property line to, is that to the doors of the Wawa? Or is that to the property line?
So it's proposed to be 352 feet from the doors of the Wawa to the residential house. I believe it's
To the house.
I believe it's 250.
258 or something.
250-ish feet from the doors of the Wawa to the residential property line.
Property line. Okay, thank you. Who here plays golf? Anybody play golf? 252 feet. That's a sand wedge. Okay, that's not even 100 yards. Who's got kids that play sports? Football, 100 yards. That's it, from that guy's yard to the doors of that Wawa. Secondly, I appreciate the fact that you're saying that you're donating land back to the city for the city to decide what to do with it. Let's call it what it is. The logistics of you developing the rest of that is more money than you guys have. So let's just call it what it is. Thank you.
My name's Josh. I live at 29 Carousel Circle. So this is about my backyard right here. From my bedroom window, I can see lights from the Marcos. That building's gonna be closer. I'm gonna see all of the lights. That's my big thing. Second thing, flooding. My backyard floods as it is. Bad. I got pictures I can email to one of you guys if you guys want to see those pictures. I've actually kayaked in my backyard. It's 7-8 feet deep, and it's all down that whole John Gray Carousel Circle. It goes all the way down. I've set resident console. I've set pictures and stuff like that. No one's come out and done nothing, researched it. It gets so bad, it will flood Carousel Circle. Because once it gets to a certain point, the drains, it will not drain no more. There's been cars flooded. You add more asphalt, more buildings, it's gonna go somewhere. It's gonna go in my backyard. That's my biggest thing. I have a 2-year-old daughter. I have dogs. I mean, who's gonna be responsible when it floods my house? I don't have to have flood insurance in that zone. Those are a couple things I have.
All right, thank you. That's a heck of an entrance. Was that on cue? Did you have him do that?
Hi, I'm Greg Sander. I'm at 28 Carousel. I live right next door to Josh. I've been there for 36 years. I was the third house in that subdivision. And the flooding that he's talking about, there's a storm drain. When I bought my property, I said, what's that storm drain? Don't worry about it. It's just a little concrete thing that runs down there. Don't worry about it. And then they built this concrete thing that's about 5 foot high. Sits right at the corner of my property. When the water gets up, that entire concrete thing is underwater. And the water not only goes this way, it goes this way. I'm the property that says he has a swimming pool. When that water comes up, it comes 10 feet from my in-ground swimming pool as it is right now. I have a shed that's back up towards the woods, sits on top of the hill. So the water has to go up the hill. It's 10 feet from my shed at its highest point. Now, eventually when it stops raining, it'll go down. But you start tearing out that vegetation and all that water starts coming down this way. And I know the reason for the storm drain was the concern about flooding down in Fairfield. Well, we're getting all of that flooding right now in Carousel. So I'd hate to see what this project is going to do to that flooding problem. At the beginning, I don't know what all the words were, something about for the betterment of the citizens of Fairfield. I don't see that another gas station is for the betterment of the city of the people of Fairfield, especially with the other 3 that they've already got going in. I know they've tried to develop that property. I'm wondering what is so special about that corner that they talked about all of the logistic problems they were going to have with drainage and sewage and all of that kind of stuff. I really don't understand that the amount of money they're going to put in just to develop that property is worth that. And then the fact that it's gonna be 24/7 with the lighting. If you take all that vegetation down and with all the people that live on that back corridor, and anybody that lives on that back corridor will tell you, all of the water from that subdivision drains into that one drain. And so when it rains hard, you're gonna have a flooding issue. And that's my major concern. I have nothing bad to say about Wawa. I don't know anything about them. I'm sure they run a great business. But I think that for the betterment of the people of Fairfield, and especially the residents of Carousel Circle, this is the wrong thing to do. Thank you.
All righty. Looks like move on to Wednesday night meeting, 6 o'clock. Planning Commission will be here in this same room. Bring your concerns and your comments, and if you, probably for the benefit of the Planning Commission, if you're thinking the same way, obviously you're all clapping, you're all, wanting it, or I'm sorry, not wanting it. So I would be back here at 6 with the Planning Commission. They will get in much better detail, whether it's lighting or fences or traffic and et cetera. So with that, we will close the public hearing, and we're going to move into our regular business. Because it's been a couple hours, for some of us that are older, might need to go to their little restroom. We're going to let you guys have the time to get out of here before we start the rest of the meeting. Is that okay? I'll be right back. If you need to discuss anything, we'd ask you to go ahead and do it on the outside of those doors. I didn't know you weren't there. I go, wait a minute, where'd he run off to? And if you can get those doors. All right. Everybody, oh, Mr. Myers isn't here. He wasn't in the restroom when I was there. I did. I had to take off.
He was just trying to help somebody connect with somebody for the meeting for Wednesday.
Ah, okay. All righty. Let's see here, folks. We have the minutes of the previous meeting. Any additions or deletions, and we'll consider them approved as stated. We'll now move on to old business, development services. Council member Davidson is not here, so Council member Brill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have an ordinance to amend ordinance number 166-84, the codified ordinances Fairfield, Ohio, section 1130.01, B2, the city of Fairfield, Ohio zoning map by approving the concept and final development plan for the Wawa planned unit development. This is the second reading of this legislation that's pending the Planning Commission.
All right. Excuse me. We'll move on now to new business. Votes a second for, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right, development services, Mr. Timmer.
We have three ordinances tonight for development services. The first ordinance is to amend the zoning map. A presentation by the development services team will accompany the public hearing proposed on August 12th. The second ordinance is to authorize the city manager to execute a development agreement relative to signage improvements at 2310 through 40 Mack Road. The third ordinance is to amend certain sections of the codified ordinances to enact zoning provisions regarding marijuana cultivation, processing, testing, and dispensaries. A presentation by the development services team will accompany the public hearing proposed on August 12th. Thank you.
All right. Councilmember Brill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First one is an ordinance to amend ordinance number 166-84, the codified ordinances of Fairfield, Ohio, section 1130B2, the city of Fairfield, Ohio zoning map. This is the first reading, and there will be a set public hearing date on August 12th, 2024. Second item is an ordinance to authorize the city manager to execute a development agreement with, I apologize for the mispronunciation, Janica Ltd. PRT relative to the signage improvements at 2310-40 Mack Road and declaring an emergency. I'd like to make a motion to suspend second and third readings.
Motion is second for rule suspension. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Motion for adoption.
Motion is second for adoption. Comments from audience? Comments from council? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And finally, I have an ordinance to amend section 1131-10, 1131.12, and 1171.02 of ordinance 166-84, the codified ordinances of Fairfield, Ohio, to enact zoning provisions regarding marijuana cultivation, processing, testing laboratories, and dispensaries, and to place a limit of 1 on the number of businesses, locations, operating as adult use and medical dispensaries permitted within the city of Fairfield. And this is first reading, and we have a public hearing set for August 12th, 2024.
Mr. Mayor, can I comment on this?
Sure.
So, Greg, maybe this is directed more towards you, and I would ask council to consider this, but in the packet, and I'm going to get this wrong, and I apologize, 1131.12, item number 7, says, these dispensaries shall not be located within 500 feet, measured parcel to parcel lines of the following uses: religious facility, public library, public playground, public park, and education facility. Is that set in stone? Because I would like to propose a 1,000-foot setback for that.
So the 500 feet is the state minimum, that's in the state code. At the public hearing, we will show you some maps. We have done some GIS work to map where all the churches and school playgrounds and everything is. And we played with the distance, and we actually used 1,000 feet as, we did a map with 500, and when we did a map of 1,000, it basically eliminated it anywhere.
Okay.
So once we plotted it out 1,000 feet, it basically made it impossible to place it anywhere in the Route 4 corridor. So the staff then backed off, and our initial recommendation is 500 feet, but of course that can be changed with the, upon your input from
all
you.
the commercial area too?
Well-
Like the commercial area down Route 4, Seward,
Well, what the proposal is that cultivators and processors would be allowed in the M2 industrial zones, because those generally are larger production type facilities with higher ceilings and that sort of thing. The recommendation from staff is that one cultivator be located on Route 4, so in the C3, C3A, or SE, which is the jungle gym zoning, to have frontage on Route 4 for the one dispensary that would be permitted.
So with that, am I doing the math, that would account for two separate facilities, or is that still only one?
It would allow for one dispensary, but more if it's a cultivation or processor.
But the cultivator processor could not be on Route 4, that would have to
They would have
go
to be in the
into
M2 zone.
In the M2
Yes, sir.
zone.
Yes.
But if I understand the rules, a cultivator can open up a dispensary, correct? At the facility itself.
That is my understanding, but there are rules about location. So if there's already a dispensary on Route 4, I believe that one might have to be a mile away in the
I think in
M2
our
zoning
meeting
district.
that we had, the general consensus was we'd do a cultivator, because he's one cultivator, because he's allowed to have a dispensary. So you'd have one cultivator and one dispensary. Am I wrong or right? Wasn't that the general feeling?
Yeah, I'm a little confused. Council agreed in our briefing, Mr. Timmer's briefing, that we were in favor of one dispensary.
One cultivator with one
I think we all
dispensary.
came to that agreement on it. And I was reading the pre-read materials there, and the one thing that flagged me was the 500 feet. You answered that. But I am confused now on the cultivation piece, because my understanding is you can have a dispensary. So we could have a bunch of cultivators with dispensaries.
That's not my understanding. I understood that we could limit the number of dispensaries, and we've done that with one.
Correct.
That's both medical and adult use. But the fact that your cultivator does not entitle you to a dispensary.
That's what we were told.
At least per our zoning.
There are, my understanding is that the cultivators can apply for a dispensary license, but if we limit it to only one and there's already a dispensary in town, that cultivator would not be able to open a dispensary as part of their larger operation.
Okay, so.
That is
in-
my understanding.
Can we confirm that and lock that down? Because
Yes.
I've got a problem.
That's
Yes.
our understanding.
Yes, if that's the understanding.
It's not two separate facilities when we're talking about each of them having a dispensary. It's one dispensary in Fairfield, and if there's a cultivation, it is without a dispensary.
Yes, yes.
That's
That is what we're trying to propose. And Steve Walterman is not here tonight. He has spent a lot of time digging into this, he and I. So we think we have it right, but yes, give us a couple more weeks for the public hearing to confirm everything.
That's what I wanted to talk about.
Yes.
so.
But just to clarify, but the ordinance, it's one dispensary, but there could be several cultivators or,
That's not what we agreed to.
but the way it's written, that's what I'm trying to get clarification. Does that mean?
Yes, yes. I will say staff,
I say, my recollection from the briefing was that the primary concern was related to the number of dispensaries.
Correct.
Personally, I did not hear a restriction on the number of cultivators.
We did.
So when staff regrouped after that meeting, we made the primary focus on reducing that number down to one on the dispensary side. And my opinion was we did not hear that. If that was incorrect, we can make that adjustment.
Tim, wasn't that what we discussed? One cultivator?
I don't remember, Dale, we talked about cultivators and that it was gonna happen and they would be present, one would be present within Fairfield. We were very distinct on the exact number of dispensaries, very distinct on one. I don't
Cultivator, we
remember,
discussed
and
one.
Dale, that could have happened, I just don't know, I don't remember. How many from a cultivation standpoint were going to be? I don't remember that specifically.
and just to be clear, there will be far fewer cultivators, facilities around the state. I mean, obviously, one big cultivator or processor can supply a lot of dispensaries. So the chances that we get a cultivation or processor it may not happen. But certainly we can present different options here going forward on limiting, numbers of cultivators and processors as well. It's just, the staff afterwards, when we regrouped, we did not
Yeah.
hear that.
Yeah.
Councilman Paulus, is that what you're recommending tonight?
One cultivator, one dispensary.
Okay.
Same.
What's the difference between a cultivator and a
That's
processor?
what I thought. It's all one thing, isn't it?
My understanding is
It's not.
cultivator is where they grow the plants. The
Right.
processor is where it converts the plant materials into a product, you know,
okay.
Isn't
a
that
vaping
usually-
cartridge or a type of food, edible or something like that.
That's correct.
This, just to be clear, this legislation, though, that we're talking about is lifting the moratorium on the dispensaries, correct?
We currently have a moratorium on all types of,
All types?
Yes.
on all types.
So this is gonna lift that moratorium.
It will eventually. Your moratorium expires, I believe, in September, and what we were trying to do with this was say where they could go when the
Yes.
moratorium is over. But this legislation in and of itself won't lift the moratorium. It will stay in effect.
Until September, until the deadline.
Or when you extend it, because this probably won't be effective
Right.
before your moratorium. So we don't want a period where they might
Right.
contend that they can open in places we
Yeah.
don't want.
But John, this allows us, after the third reading, this would allow us to then take Greg's team, essentially to take folks that are interested to go to the next level and to vet those through, correct?
Yes, we've already gotten some calls from companies who are putting in applications at the state, and I have conveyed to them that you are considering allowing one in with some zoning restrictions, but that the decision is not
Okay.
made final, and they need to make a decision whether or not to put in an application to the state or not.
But it is one dispensary, Councilman.
Okay. Okay.
All righty. Let's see here. Where do we go from there?
So, excuse me, Mr. Mayor, just for direction to Mr. Timmer's staff, for the second reading, you'll come back with a proposal. I mean, we're set on the dispensary, one dispensary, correct? And you'll
Yes.
come back with, I guess, a little bit more definition on the cultivation piece.
If that's what you guys are, if you're requesting a modification to what is in there for cultivation, we can present other options. I mean, right now, the way it is written, as Greg already stated, it would allow for multiple cultivators. If that direction is not where we'd like to go, we can propose other options, yes. And
It's up to council.
we do record the briefings. I will go back and listen to it to be able to determine what we discussed at that briefing. If my interpretation was incorrect, I will make sure to communicate that to you all, and we can then provide a correction if in fact what we discussed at the briefing was different.
And just to clarify the process, the August meeting would be the public hearing.
Yeah.
Then it would go to planning commission.
Then it would go there.
Then it would come back to city council. So we still have a couple months till it would come back to you
Okay.
for us to clarify and everything else.
I'm good personally, just one vote here. I'm good with a dispensary. One dispensary per the zoning changes and so forth. I'm good with, if you can come back from my standpoint with any more definition or clarity on the cultivation piece, I would be happy. I don't know about you guys.
And I apologize for not having a little more clarity tonight. Since this was only first reading, and we obviously had some
Yeah.
other agenda items that were
Well-
monopolizing some time.
And
for
the other
tonight,
piece
so.
too, on behalf of, or out of respect for Councilman Davidson, who's been passionate about this, making sure that we get this right. He'll be, I would assume, at the next meeting in August and in September and so forth, and we'll get more clarity from another vote, a voting member at council too.
He's listening right now.
Oh, is he listening? Okay, all right, okay, well,
If you look at your phone, he's blowing it up.
Yeah.
all right.
He's the one that told us that John's mic wasn't on.
Oh, okay, all right. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor, on that.
All right, cool. Well, let's move on to, are you okay? Okay. Parks and Recreation, Mr. Timmer.
Did we vote on those last?
We didn't, it was just set the public hearing as a first reading.
I think it's great that we talk about this, like, and we've made this much progress
Heck
on
yeah.
this particular piece here. We have really come to some good compromising, not to go backwards, but
All right,
I'm very proud.
go ahead, Mr. Timmer.
We have one ordinance tonight for Parks, Recreation, and Environment. The ordinance is to authorize the city manager to execute a contract with Digital Visions for park security and camera upgrades. Based on upcoming investment in city assets, the Parks Department has requested an upgrade and expansion to the city's video surveillance capabilities. This project will be led by the city's Information Technology Division in coordination with the Parks and Recreation Department. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Bezel.
Thank you. I have an ordinance to authorize the city manager to execute a contract with Digital Visions for the park security and cameras upgrade and declaring an emergency. I move to suspend the second and third readings.
Second.
Motion is second for rule suspension. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And move to adopt.
Second.
Motion is second for adoption. Comments from audience? Comments from council? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. All right, public safety, Mr. Timmer.
We have one simple motion and one resolution tonight for public safety. The resolution is to accept and approve terms for a national opioid settlement and authorize the city manager to execute a subdivision participation and release form. Thank you.
Councilmember Paulus.
I have a motion to not request a hearing regarding a liquor permit application in the name of Hot and Spicy LLC, doing business as Hot and Spicy Restaurant and Bar, 4623 Dixie Highway, Fairfield, permit class D1, D2, D3, and D6.
All right. All in favor? Oh, I need a, did we get a second?
Second.
There you go. Now, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And I got a resolution to accept and approve the material terms of the proposed settlement with Kroger Company consistent with the terms of the National Opioid Settlement Agreement and authorize the city manager to execute a subdivision participation and release form and declaring it an emergency. I make a motion to suspend second and third reading.
Motion second for rule suspension. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Move for adoption.
Motion second for adoption. Comments from audience? Comments from council? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
All right, Mr. Timmer for public utilities.
We have one ordinance and one resolution tonight for public utilities. The resolution authorizes all actions necessary for a natural gas aggregation program. This resolution authorizes the city manager to negotiate and enter into a natural gas aggregation agreement with a natural gas supplier in consultation with and upon recommendation of Energy Alliances Incorporated, the city's energy aggregation consultant. The ordinance authorizes the city manager to approve and adopt Fairfield's sustainability plan. This final plan will serve as a comprehensive roadmap to address environmental, economic, and livability considerations in the city and will be a catalyst for quality of life improvements for all residents. The plan considers elements such as energy usage in the community, open space preservation, resource protection and use efficiencies, and economic sustainability initiatives. Thank you.
All right. For Councilmember Pennington, Mr. Myers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a resolution authorizing all actions necessary to effect a governmental natural gas aggregation program and declaring an emergency. This time I'd like to make a motion to suspend second and third readings.
Motion is second for rule suspension. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you. Motion to adopt.
Second.
Motion is second for adoption. Comments from audience? Comments from council? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you. The second item is an ordinance to authorize the city manager to approve and adopt Fairfield's sustainability plan called Fairfield Sustains. Plan dated June 27th, 2024. This is the first reading. I just do want to make a comment. I couldn't be more proud of this city. This is something that started in 2005. I want to thank Adam. I want to thank Aaron. I want to thank Scott and the entire staff team. This is a step forward for quality of life, from the efficiency for operations, for cost savings for our residents, and for the environmental components of what we contribute to the city. It's a great plan, and I've read it over and over again. It's weird because it's like 80, 90 pages long, however, but it's a phenomenal plan with lots of actions, It'll be interesting, if it passes, how we, implement it, but I'm very proud of it. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Totally agree. Cool. All right, Public Works, Mr. Timmer.
We have 7 ordinances tonight for Public Works. The first ordinance is to authorize the city manager to execute a contract with Pro Shot Concrete for drainage repairs. The repairs at Resch Boulevard and one on Reeser Road are both 60-inch diameter corrugated metal pipes that are starting to fail and need lined to prevent future failures. The second ordinance is to authorize the city manager to execute a contract with Adlita Construction for proposed sidewalk construction. The sidewalks would connect the west side of Ross Road between Sherrill Drive and Cherry Hill Drive. This project will fill in this gap and complete a sidewalk network from Mack Road to Route 4 in compliance with ADA regulations. A public bid opening was held on June 10th. 2 bids were received, opened, and publicly read. The lowest and best complete bid was Adlita Construction. The third ordinance is to authorize the city manager to execute a contract with CMT Incorporated for Route 4 sidewalk design engineering. The improvements to be designed are sidewalk on Route 4 between Bypass 4 and South Gilmore Road. Construction of this project would be funded through the Butler County ARPA distribution, and sidewalk on Route 4 north of Sims to fill in gaps on the east side of Route 4 to create a continuous path from Sims to the corporation limit. It is anticipated that the construction of this project will be funded with future community development block grant funds. The fourth ordinance is to authorize the city manager to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the Butler County Transportation Improvement District, or TID, for intersection improvements at Tylersville and Seward. The intersection of Seward and Tylersville roads were identified for capacity improvements to facilitate increased car and truck traffic resulting from the Fairfield Logistics Center development. The intersection improvements will include installation of a roundabout, a solution selected in consultation with the Butler County Engineer's Office. The fifth ordinance is to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Horton Emergency Vehicles for a purchase of a Horton ambulance. The sixth ordinance is to declare 3 pieces of city equipment as surplus and authorize the city manager to execute an agreement to sell said equipment. The seventh ordinance is to authorize the city manager to execute a contract with Rack and Ballure for Tylersville and Seward intersection roundabout project. The intersection of Seward and Tylersville roads were identified for capacity improvements to facilitate increased car and truck traffic resulting from the Fairfield Logistics Center development. The intersection improvements will include the installation of a roundabout, a solution selected in consultation with the Butler County Engineer's Office. A public bid opening was held on July 1st. 10 bids were received, opened, and publicly read. The lowest and best was Rack and Ballure. Thank you.
All righty. Councilmember Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Off and running.
Off and running. The first ordinance is to authorize the city manager to execute a contract with Pro Shot Concrete for the emergency drainage repair on Roche Boulevard and on Reeser Road and declaring an emergency. Making a motion to suspend second and third readings, please.
Second.
Motion second for rule suspension. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And motion for adoption.
Second.
Motion second for adoption. Comments from audience? Comments from council? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Second ordinance is to authorize the city manager to execute a contract with Adlita Construction for the construction of the proposed sidewalk along west side of Ross Road between Sherrill Drive and Cherry Hill Drive and declaring an emergency. Motion to suspend second and third readings, please.
Motion second for rule suspension. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And motion for adoption.
Second.
Motion second for adoption. Comments from audience? Comments from council? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Third is an ordinance to authorize the city manager to execute a contract with CMT Inc. for engineering of the Route 4 sidewalk design between Bypass 4 and South Gilmore and a segment north of Sims and declaring an emergency. A motion to suspend second and third readings, please.
Motion second for rule suspension. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And motion for adoption.
Motion second for adoption. Comments from audience? Comments from council? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Fourth ordinance is to authorize the city manager to enter into an intergovernmental agreement, or an IGA, with Butler County Transportation Improvement District for Tylersville and Seward Road intersection improvements and declaring an emergency. Motion to suspend second and third readings.
Motion second for rule suspension. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And motion for adoption.
Motion second for adoption. Comments from council? Comments from audience? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Fifth is an ordinance to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Horton Emergency Vehicles for the purchase of a Horton ambulance to be used by the fire department and declaring an emergency. A motion to suspend second and third readings, please.
Motion second for rule suspension. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And motion for adoption.
Motion second for adoption. Comments from audience? Comments from council?
Yes.
Yes.
Tom, what's the lead time on that?
24 to 36 months.
2 years, 2 to 3 years. Yeah. Amazing.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Ordinance number 6 is to declare 3 pieces of city equipment as surplus and authorize the city manager to execute an agreement with govdeals.com to sell the pieces of equipment. Motion to suspend second and third readings.
Motion second for rule suspension. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Motion for adoption.
Second. Motion second for adoption. Comments from audience? Comments from council? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And the 7th and final ordinance is to authorize the city manager to execute a contract with Rack and Ballure for the Tylersville Seward Intersection Roundabout Project and declaring an emergency. Motion to suspend second and third readings, please.
Motion second for rule suspension. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And a motion for adoption.
Second. All in favor? Oh,
Aye.
I'm sorry. Comments from council? Comments from audience? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
That's all I have, sir.
Thank you. Good job.
That's enough from you tonight.
That's right. He's been told that before. That's enough from you.
Waving the white flag.
Starting to sound like Terry, the singer.
All righty. Finance and budget, Mr. Timmer.
We have 2 ordinances and 1 resolution tonight for finance and budget. The resolution is to adopt a tax budget for fiscal year 2025. In accordance with ORC Section 5705.28, each taxing authority must pass a resolution adopting a tax budget prior to July 15th and submit such tax budget to the county auditor. The tax budget requires the city to estimate revenues and expenditures for funds which derive revenues from real and personal property tax. The city of Fairfield has 2 funds which derive money from property taxes, the general fund and fire levy fund. The first and second ordinances are for contractual and non-contractual appropriations. The contractual appropriations total $3,260,900 and are for 9 projects in the Public Works Department and Information Technology Division. The non-contractual appropriations total $383,663 and include 8 projects from the Development Services, Parks and Recreation, and Public Works Departments and Information Technology Division. Thank you.
All righty. Councilmember Brill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First resolution is for adoption of the tax budget for the city of Fairfield, Ohio for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2025, and submitting the same to the Butler County Auditor and declaring an emergency. I'd like to make a motion to suspend second and third readings.
Motion second for rule suspension. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And a motion for adopt.
Motion second for adoption. Comments from audience? Comments from council? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Second ordinance is to amend ordinance number 166-23 entitled, "An Ordinance to Make Estimated Appropriations for the Expenses and Other Expenditures of the City of Fairfield, Ohio during a period beginning January 1, 2024 and ending December 31st, 2024. These are the contractual appropriations. I'd like to make a motion to suspend second and third readings.
Motion second for rule suspension. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Motion to adopt.
Motion second for adoption. Comments from audience? Comments from council? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And the third and final is an ordinance to amend ordinance number 166-23 entitled, "An Ordinance to Make Estimated Appropriations for the Expenses and Other Expenditures of the City of Fairfield, Ohio during a period beginning January 1, 2024 and ending December 31st, 2024. These are the non-contractual appropriations. I'd like to make a motion to suspend second and third readings.
Motion second for rule suspension. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Motion to adopt.
Motion second for adoption. Comments from audience? Comments from council? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right, that was good. Madam Clerk, could you read the meeting schedule?
Monday, August 12th, council manager briefing 6 p.m., regular meeting 7 p.m. Monday, September 9th, council manager briefing 6 p.m., regular meeting 7 p.m. Monday, September 23rd, council manager briefing 6 p.m., regular meeting 7 p.m.
All right. We stand adjourned since there's no executive session. Thanks, folks, for sticking around. The fun.